Most people think conflict is the enemy. They believe peace only arrives when the noise stops, when the argument ends, when the pressure disappears. But here's a truth most people never learn. Conflict is not the problem. Losing yourself inside it is. Every day, people carry unresolved arguments, silent resentment, and unspoken frustration. They replay conversations in their minds and feel drained before the day even begins. Conflict doesn't just affect emotions. It shapes energy, decisions, leadership, and ultimately the direction of life. Brendon Burchard teaches that high performers don't live without conflict. They live with clarity inside it. Few people realize that under emotional stress, the brain loses access to higher reasoning. That is why calm people say things they regret during heated moments. That is why strong relationships break over small misunderstandings. Peace feels rare because most people wait for the storm to pass instead of learning how to stand steady in the middle of it. This video is not about avoiding hard conversations or pretending everything is fine. It is not about suppressing emotions or ignoring pain. It is about learning how great leaders and fulfilled individuals stay centered when everything around them feels unstable. You will learn why peace is an internal skill, not an external reward, and why it must be practiced before conflict ends, not after. In this video, you will discover how to stop letting conflict define your identity. You will learn why awareness is more powerful than reaction, how your energy influences outcomes before words ever do, and why a simple pause can change the direction of an entire conversation. These are habits of greatness that most people never develop, yet they quietly separate high performers from everyone else. One lesser-known truth about Brendon Burchard's journey is that many of his greatest insights came during moments of inner pressure, not success, moments of confusion, moments of emotional overload. Instead of running from those moments, he studied them. He learned that peace is not passive, peace is practiced. And those who master it don't just survive conflict, they lead through it. If you stay with this video until the end, you will understand why trying to win conflict often costs more than it gives. You will learn how separating your worth from the situation changes everything, and how leading yourself first is the foundation of influencing others. This is not just mindset advice. It is a shift that transforms how you show up in conversations, relationships, and life. Because when you remain grounded in conflict, you don't just protect your peace, you protect your future. Peace does not make you weak. It makes you powerful. It allows you to respond instead of react, to listen instead of defend, and to act from values rather than emotion. That is a true habit of greatness. So if you have ever felt overwhelmed by tension, misunderstood in conflict, or exhausted from carrying emotional weight that no longer serves you, this video is for you. Watch till the end, because one insight here could change how you handle pressure for the rest of your life. Welcome to Habits of Greatness. If this message resonates with you, subscribe to the channel and join a community committed to clarity, growth, and becoming your best self. Before we talk about finding peace, we need to understand why conflict feels so heavy in the first place. Conflict does not begin in the room. It begins in the mind. The moment tension appears, your thoughts start racing. You replay words. You predict outcomes. You imagine worst-case scenarios. The mind moves faster than the situation itself, and that speed creates pressure. Brendon Burchard explains that the brain is designed to protect, not to create peace. When conflict shows up, the mind scans for threats. It asks, am I safe? Am I being respected? Am I losing control? These questions happen instantly, often without awareness. And once the brain senses danger, it shifts into defense mode. Logic fades. Emotion takes the lead. This is why conflict feels exhausting. Even when nothing is said out loud, the battle happens internally first. Thoughts loop, tension builds. The body tightens. Your breathing changes. Your focus narrows. You are no longer fully present. You are preparing to react. Brendon often reminds us that high performance requires clarity, but conflict clouds clarity faster than almost anything else. When emotions rise, attention collapses. You stop listening to understand and start listening to respond. Every word feels loaded. Every pause feels threatening. Peace feels impossible because the mind is already fighting. What most people don't realize is that the mind interprets emotional conflict the same way it interprets physical danger. Heart rate increases, stress hormones flood the system, energy is pulled away from creativity and problem solving. That's why even small disagreements can feel overwhelming. The body thinks survival is at stake. And here's the hidden drain. The mind doesn't let go easily. Even after the conflict ends, the thoughts keep running. You replay the moment in your head. You rewrite conversations. You argue with people who aren't even there anymore. This mental noise steals energy long after the situation has passed. Brendon Burchard teaches that this constant inner chatter is one of the biggest reasons people feel tired, unmotivated, and disconnected. It's not always the workload. It's the unresolved emotional tension living rent-free in the mind. Conflict lingers because clarity was never restored. Another reason conflict drains us is identity attachment. In moments of tension, people don't just defend ideas, they defend who they think they are. Being right feels like survival. Being misunderstood feels like rejection. When identity is on the line, emotions intensify. The mind becomes rigid. Flexibility disappears. This is where peace feels furthest away. Not because the conflict is intense, but because the mind believes it must win to feel safe. Brendon often says that when ego takes over, wisdom steps aside. The need to be right becomes stronger than the desire to be calm. And that choice costs energy every single time. Conflict also drains because most people try to control outcomes they can't control. They want others to change. They want situations to resolve quickly. They want certainty. When reality doesn't cooperate, frustration grows. The mind pushes harder. Resistance builds. Peace slips further away. Brendon emphasizes that energy flows where attention goes. In conflict, attention is scattered. Part of you is in the past, replaying what happened. Part of you is in the future, worrying about what might happen next. Very little of you is in the present moment, and without presence, peace has no place to land. This constant mental movement creates emotional fatigue. You feel tired even if you haven't done anything physically demanding. Your body is carrying stress it doesn't know how to release. The mind is holding stories it doesn't know how to resolve. Understanding this changes everything. Because once you see that conflict attacks the mind first, you stop blaming the situation. You stop blaming the people. You begin to realize that peace was never missing. It was just buried under unmanaged thoughts and untrained awareness. Most people are waiting for peace like it is a reward at the end of a hard experience. They believe once the argument is over, once the tension disappears, once the other person changes, then they will finally feel calm. But this belief quietly traps them because peace does not arrive after conflict ends. That idea keeps people stuck in reaction, always chasing relief instead of creating it. Brendon Burchard teaches that peace must come first, or it never truly comes at all. When people delay peace, they give conflict power. They tell their nervous system, I cannot be okay until this situation changes. And the moment you do that, your emotional state becomes dependent on things you cannot control. The argument may end, but the agitation remains. The silence may return, but the tension lingers. Peace postponed becomes peace denied. Brendon often emphasizes that the highest performers do not wait for ideal conditions to feel centered. They generate their internal state intentionally. Peace is not something you stumble into when life behaves. It is something you practice when life does not. That is why two people can face the same conflict and walk away with completely different outcomes. One feels drained and resentful. The other feels grounded and clear. The difference is not the situation. It is the inner response. This is where the real battle exists. Conflict on the outside is unavoidable. Disagreement, pressure, misunderstanding, and opposing values are part of human interaction. But the conflict inside is optional. The moment tension appears externally, something shifts internally. Thoughts tighten, emotions surge. The mind starts defending, justifying, preparing to attack or withdraw. And this inner reaction decides everything. Brendon Burchard teaches that life does not happen to us. It happens through us. What we allow internally determines how we experience everything externally. Two people can hear the same words, but only one feels threatened. Only one feels disrespected. Only one feels the need to prove something. The outer event is the same, the inner interpretation is not. When people believe the outer conflict controls their inner state, they give away their power. They feel reactive. They feel helpless. They feel like peace is something fragile that can be taken from them at any moment. But the truth Brendon shares is simple and confronting. Control begins inside, not with fixing the situation, not with changing the other person, but with choosing how you show up internally. This choice does not start with action. It starts with awareness. Awareness is the first shift toward peace, not forcing calm, not pretending everything is fine, not suppressing emotion, just noticing your breath, noticing your tension, noticing the speed of your thoughts, noticing the story you are telling yourself. Brendon often says that awareness is the doorway to all growth. Without awareness, we live on autopilot. We react before we think. We speak before we understand. We defend before we listen. Awareness slows the moment down. It creates space between stimulus and response. And in that space, peace becomes possible. Most people skip this step. They rush to fix the conflict. They rush to explain themselves. They rush to win. The peace does not come from rushing. It comes from presence, from being willing to sit with your internal state without judging it or trying to change it immediately. Awareness is not passive. It is powerful. It is the moment you reclaim control. When you become aware of your internal state, something important happens. You stop being fully identified with it. You begin to see that emotions are experiences, not identities. Thoughts are events, not truths. And this leads to one of the most freeing teachings Brendon Burchard shares. You are not the argument. You are not the moment. Conflict feels personal because people attach their worth to the situation. If someone disagrees, they feel rejected. If someone criticizes, they feel diminished. If someone challenges them, they feel threatened. The mind blends identity with circumstance. And once that happens, every disagreement feels like an attack on who you are. Brendon teaches that this attachment is one of the biggest sources of suffering. When identity is fused with the moment, clarity disappears. You stop asking, what is the best response? And start asking, how do I protect myself? Peace becomes impossible when survival feels at stake. Separating identity from the situation changes everything. You can disagree without feeling unsafe. You can receive feedback without feeling unworthy. You can experience conflict without losing self-respect. You realize that a tense moment does not define you. A harsh word does not diminish you. A misunderstanding does not erase your value. This separation does not make you cold or detached. It makes you grounded. It allows you to stay present without being consumed. Brendon reminds us that confidence is not about dominating others. It is about being stable within yourself. And stability creates peace. Once identity is no longer on the line, you gain access to choice. You can choose your energy on purpose. And energy, more than words, shapes outcomes. Low energy escalates conflict. It tightens the room. It sharpens tones. It invites resistance. Calm energy does the opposite. It slows the exchange. It softens defensiveness. It opens space for understanding. Brendon Burchard often says that people respond more to how you show up than to what you say. Energy communicates before language. When you bring agitation into a conversation, it spreads. When you bring calm, it regulates. Peace is contagious when it is genuine. Choosing your energy does not mean denying your feelings. It means leading them. It means deciding that your internal state matters more than proving a point. It means understanding that calm is not weakness. Calm is command. It signals safety. It signals confidence. It signals self-leadership. Most people think energy is something that happens to them. Brendon teaches that energy is something you cultivate. You breathe differently. You stand differently. You slow your speech. You listen fully. These are not small changes. They are leadership choices. When you choose calm energy in the middle of conflict, you change the dynamic. The conversation shifts. The emotional temperature drops, even if the other person remains reactive. you stay grounded. And that groundedness becomes your advantage, not because you control them, but because you control yourself. This is where peace stops being an idea and becomes a practice, not after the conflict ends, not when everything feels safe, but right in the middle of uncertainty, right when emotions rise, right when the mind wants to react. Peace comes first, and when it does, everything else follows. There is a moment in every conflict where everything could change. It is the moment just before you speak, just before you react, just before emotion takes the wheel. Brendon Burchard teaches that this moment is power. Pausing is not weakness. It is leadership. Most people rush because they are uncomfortable with silence. They believe fast responses show strength. But in reality, speed often creates regret. Silence creates space, and space allows wisdom to rise. An intentional pause calms the nervous system. It slows the racing mind. It reconnects you to choice. When you pause, you are no longer a prisoner of impulse. You become an observer of the moment. You hear not just the words being said, but the emotion behind them. You feel your own body settle, and from that steadiness, clarity emerges. Brendon often says that the pause is where high performance lives. Leaders do not react on instinct alone. They respond with intention. A pause may last only a breath, but it changes everything. It shifts the energy of the interaction. It signals confidence. It shows self-control, and self-control creates trust. In silence, the mind stops fighting and starts understanding. Instead of preparing a defense, you begin to see the bigger picture. You realize that most conflict is not about the surface issue. It is about unmet needs, unspoken fears, and misunderstood intentions. Without a pause, these truths stay hidden. With a pause, they reveal themselves. Once you create space, you gain the ability to reframe the conflict. Reframing is not denial. It is perspective. Brendon Burchard teaches that every conflict carries a lesson. But lessons only appear when you stop resisting the moment. When you stop asking, why is this happening to me? And start asking, what is this here to teach me? This question changes the emotional tone instantly. Instead of feeling attacked, you become curious. Instead of feeling stuck, you become open. Curiosity lowers defensiveness. It invites growth. Conflict stops being an enemy and becomes a teacher. Reframing allows you to see patterns. You begin to notice recurring triggers. You see where your boundaries are weak. You recognize habits that no longer serve you. Conflict exposes these areas, not to punish you, but to refine you. Brendon often reminds us that growth is uncomfortable because it stretches us beyond old identities. When you ask better questions, you access better answers. What is this here to teach me about myself? What skill is this moment asking me to develop? Where do I need to lead myself better? These questions shift you from reaction to reflection. And reflection creates peace. As understanding grows, another shift becomes possible. You begin to lead with values instead of emotions. Emotions react. They rise quickly. They demand immediate expression. Values move slower, but they last longer. Values are chosen. Emotions are experienced. Brendon Burchard teaches that inner peace comes from alignment. When your actions match your values, your nervous system settles. Even difficult conversations feel cleaner. You may still feel emotion, but you are no longer driven by it. You act from intention, not impulse. Leading with values means asking yourself who you want to be in this moment. Calm or reactive, respectful or defensive, grounded or explosive. These choices shape your character. Over time, they shape your identity. Peace is not found in avoiding emotion. It is found in choosing behavior that reflects your highest self. When values lead, communication changes. You speak with clarity instead of force. You listen with presence instead of resistance. You respond in ways that build respect, even when disagreement remains. Brendon emphasizes that how you handle conflict becomes a reflection of your self-mastery. This naturally leads to one of the hardest lessons in conflict: letting go of the need to win. Winning an argument may feel satisfying in the moment, but it often comes at a cost. That cost is inner peace. It is trust. It is connection. Brendon Burchard teaches that ego wants victory. Wisdom wants harmony. Ego asks, how do I prove I am right? Wisdom asks, what outcome serves everyone involved? When the need to win takes over, listening stops, understanding disappears, the relationship becomes secondary to self-validation. True strength is choosing harmony over ego. This does not mean surrendering your truth. It means expressing it without aggression. It means knowing that being heard matters more than being right. Peace grows when conversations become collaborative instead of competitive. When you release the need to win, tension softens. The body relaxes, the mind clears. You realize that most arguments are not about truth, but about perspective. Two perspectives can exist without one needing to defeat the other. This realization is freeing. Brendon often says that personal growth is measured by how little you need to prove. The less you need validation, the more peaceful you become. Confidence rooted in self-worth does not require dominance. It requires presence. As this mindset develops, peace stops being something you chase during conflict. It becomes something you practice before conflict ever appears. Peace is a habit, not a reaction. Habits are built daily, not in moments of crisis. Brendon Burchard emphasizes that emotional regulation is a skill. Like any skill, it requires training. You practice slowing your breath. You practice awareness. You practice choosing calm in small moments. These practices build emotional muscle. When conflict eventually arises, you are ready. You are not scrambling for peace. You are anchored in it. Your nervous system recognizes calm as familiar. Your mind recognizes clarity as normal. You respond with steadiness because steadiness has become your baseline. Practicing peace daily also changes how you see yourself. You begin to trust your ability to handle discomfort. You no longer fear difficult conversations. You no longer avoid tension. You meet it with confidence. Peace trained in advance becomes resilience. It allows you to stay present under pressure. It allows you to lead when emotions are high. And it allows you to move through conflict without losing yourself. This is not about perfection. It is about practice. Every pause strengthens awareness. Every reframed moment builds wisdom. Every value-based choice reinforces integrity. Every release of ego restores calm. Over time, peace stops being fragile. It becomes stable, and stability becomes your greatest strength. Peace is not the absence of conflict. It is the presence of self-leadership. When you learn to stay grounded in the middle of tension, you stop being controlled by circumstances and start shaping them. This is where real personal growth begins, not when life is easy, but when pressure tests who you are becoming. Brendon Burchard teaches that leadership is first practiced internally. If you can lead your thoughts, your emotions, and your energy, you can lead conversations, relationships, and eventually your life. Peace is not passive. It is an active choice to respond with clarity, to act from values, and to remain anchored in who you are, even when everything around you feels uncertain. The most powerful leaders are not the loudest in the room. They are the calmest. They create safety, they create direction, and they create trust, simply by how they show up. When you choose peace first, you don't lose your strength. You refine it. So the next time conflict appears, don't ask how to escape it. Ask who you want to be inside it, because the way you handle conflict quietly shapes your character, your influence, and your future. If this message helped you see conflict differently, take a moment to like this video. And if you want more insights on mindset, growth, and high-performance living, subscribe to Habits of Greatness. Keep choosing clarity, keep choosing growth, and most importantly, keep choosing peace.